G'day there, Signets and Swanlings. 2012 Premiership player Nick Smith here. It's my pleasure, as always, to introduce a bevy of bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club, brought to you by Noddy and Stevo, a pair of red and white tragics. So pop on the kettle and settle in as the boys had an in-depth chat about the Swans' last game, the Swans' next game, and a little bit about footy too. This is Nick Smith signing off until next week's episode. But in the meantime, remember, be good to your bloods and they'll be good to you.
Welcome back to a bevy of bloods. I'm your host, Noddy, and today I'm joined once again by Chris. G'day, Chris. How you going, mate?
Good, Noddy. We've got a lot to talk about this week.
We certainly do. In this episode number 32, we're going to be reviewing the Swannies' round 3 game. So fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a definitely biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved bloods. Last Thursday night, our Sydney Swans were defeated by the Western Bulldogs by 11 points with a final score of 9-17-71 to 9-6-60. Okay, mate, first impressions, what do you think of that?
Oof, well, it was a tough game of football to watch from every angle. Look, football from Sydney wasn't particularly grand, as we'll talk about and try to dissect. The kicking by the Bulldogs just kept us in the game, and that was a bit shocking to watch. Poor performance by the umpires, as far as we can tell. We'll talk about that as well. And yeah, look, not the best game of football to watch. And talking to some of the fans on the way out of the stadium, the commentary was there as well. Everyone was kind of considering why they got out on a Thursday night. But look, clearly some emotional hangovers going on by our boys from the week before. So I think we can take away from that. And I think it's I think we could take away a positive note in that's probably the worst game we played for a long time. And I think that's more a positive than a negative.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair call. That's right, you went down there, didn't you? You had a good time in general?
Yeah, pretty good. I went down for work and got out to watch the game. But yeah, MRVL is an interesting stadium. It's seemingly perpetually always half built. But yeah, look, the fans that were there were in pretty good stead. So all in all, yeah, good.
Loving the look of those cup holders in the back of the seat there. Hey.
Oh, mate, like 10 out of 10. If you're going to take anything away from MRVL, you're going to be saying that the cup holders behind the seats were 10 out of 10.
Awesome. All right, mate. As you said, we're gonna dig into the free kicks later. But look, you just can't kick one goal in a whole half and expect to win, right? I think one of the commentators said that there was our equal worst half under Longmire, and we've been very successful under Horse. So that just goes to show, as you said, one of the worst games we've seen in a long time, and that is a positive. I agree with you. In a nutshell, tight zone defensive structure forced us to kick long. Dogs flooded the contest. They scrapped their way to win most contests. They are plus 24 in contested possessions and plus 15 in ground ball gets. The only reason, as you've already said, we were really kept in the game was by their inaccuracy. But I will say that it seemed to be a game of halves. So the Western Bulldogs had plus 11 free kicks in the first half and won that first half by 25 points. Then in the second half, Western Bulldogs only had plus 7 free kicks in the second half, but we won that by 14 points. So to me, that shows that, yeah, there was a shocking second and third quarter run of dubious free kick calls, but we were more in the game in the second half than we were in the first. And we just got to be in the game for all quarters for both halves. That's really it for me. How about for your key takeaways, mate? What did you think in general?
Yeah, look, the first thing I kind of considered just watching it over and watching it live, it kind of felt way more frustrating, but the skill errors by some skillful players. I think, there was a lot of kicks that were just overdone, way too hot, over the hands and over the fingers of some of the players. Those are kicks that normally some really good players of ours hits them on the chest. The handballs were undercooked for some reason. They just didn't hit the mark, didn't hit the guy on the run, a little bit too behind them, a little bit too forward. So we just couldn't quite get a roll on. We couldn't just get the ball moving from outside of those stoppages. So they really controlled those stoppages, and I think the stats will show that. But even when we did get the option to kind of do something with it, we just fumbled it on the way out. We just gave them more opportunities to kind of move the ball and then just more opportunities to put pressure on us. So that was, for me, a big takeaway. Really felt that was where most of the game we kind of let up, where we had the options to win the game, and we kind of didn't really take it on. The pressure by the Dogs were incredible, and which is just their style of play. And it's kind of, I mean, it's not good to see from the other side, but it's good to see them kind of getting into that again. Well,
they had a lot to play for, didn't they? They were 0-2, so there was a lot on the line for them, and I think they really stepped up. But Tim English was pretty good.
Oh, mate, Tim English, incredible. So I know you've been quite big on Tim English for some time, ever since he almost ran down Ollie Florent going for a goal a couple of years ago. So the guy's got some legs, and he moved around really well, and he took a mad specky off Buddy, and so his confidence was very high, and he carried that through the entire game. So, good on him.
Yeah. I'm going to throw some stats. The Western Bulldogs, like in a general sense, it was pretty even, but there's a theme that comes out, and you've already touched on. It's to do with pressure and the contest. So Western Bulldogs had plus 10 inside 50s, plus 24 contested possessions, plus 9 clearances, plus 15 ground ball gets, plus 15 tackles. And in terms of scoring shots, so we're talking about inaccuracy. I think we were a bit inaccurate as well. It's just we didn't have as many opportunities going in. We were, minus 10 inside 50s. But, they had 26 scoring shots, 9-17. But there were 5 of those were rushed behind. So I take them out when I look at this. So they had 21 scoring shots. So they scored 9 goals from 21. That's a 42% conversion rate. Us, on the other hand, we also had 2 rush behind. So our 9-6 becomes 9-5. So 13 scoring shots. So 9 from 13 is 69%. So we've been playing like we've been playing. We're not getting as many inside 50s, but we're countering that with accuracy and efficiency in front of goal. It's just in a game like this, when there's so much pressure, we probably needed to get it inside 50 more often, and have players like Buddy and Heaney hit their targets. I mean, the Bulldogs missed a lot of gettable goals. I wrote them all out one by one and went through it. Was that gettable? Wasn't it? I think at least half of the taking out the rush behinds, probably half of them were gettable. So it very easily could have been a bloodbath.
They really had the yips. Like some of the goals that kind of 50-50 gettable, like a goal from 35 out with no angle or a low angle is, in all fairness, by any forward, a gettable goal, and probably should be a goal 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
It really felt like they didn't take those chances. Like those goals that, that sharper kick that they could have had just wasn't there. I mean, Waitman probably kicked a couple shockers, but also kicked a couple of beauties along the way.
Yeah.
But one thing for our team is that the backs did do was kind of not really give them too easy goals from standing right in front or right in the box. A couple they got behind us a couple of times, but you can kind of take away a few decent things away from it, and that they didn't have they kicked 17 behinds, for crying out loud. And a portion of those were because of the angles they had to kick at and the opportunities that we kind of didn't let them have. So, we walk away from this with some optimism. But one thing I would want to touch on, and I think we should on behalf of all the Swans fans, is the free kicks.
Happy to, mate. Happy to. I've been very vocal about this over the years. So I thought I owed it to not only myself, but the other Swans fans. And I think we're talking before we started recording, we realized this week very clearly that there's 2 types of, let's say, AFL fans, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones who see the free kick count and cry bloody murder and fair call. And there are those fans that see it and say, so what? And look, I think there's merit to both of those camps. I do. But in the study that I did, I saw someone on one of the groups say, since 2016, this has been the stats. So I thought I just wanted to dig into that a little bit more. Since season 2016, the Sydney Swans have played the Western Bulldogs 9 times, including the grand final in 2016. From those 9 games, Western Bulldogs have won 6 times. We have won 3 times. From those 9 games, the free kick count has been won once by Sydney in 27-19 by +9 differential, drawn once, 22 each in 2019, and won 7 times by the Bulldogs. From our 6 losses, we have always lost the free kick count. Again, the closest was the drawn count in 2019. From our 3 wins, we have lost the free kick count twice and won it once. So here are our 3 wins over the past how many years is that? 6 or so years, right? Season 21, round 17, lost the free kick count differential of -13. Played at Marvel, but we won by 19 points last year. Remember, Jordan Dawson was awesome.
Yep.
2018, round 4, lost the free kick count. Again, differential of -13. Again at Marvel, but won by 7. 2021, round 17, won the free kick count +9. That's not right. That year's not right. Sorry, that's a typo. I'll double check that. It was earlier. I want to say around 2017, probably. But we won by +9 differential, played at the SCG, and won by 46 points. So here are my takeaways, mate. We can win against the Western Bulldogs even when we play away. We can win against the Western Bulldogs even when we lose the free kick count. Our biggest win, +46 points, came from playing at home and winning the free kick count. Aside from the 2016 grand final, -12, still brings a tear to my eye. We have been able to win games even when we lose the free kick count by up to a differential of 13. However, we're 66% more likely to lose when we lose or draw the free kick count when we play against the Western Bulldogs.
Sure. Look, and also while we're at it, the Swans fans that put all this on Facebook, that made a really good assessment of his name was, I'm going to bugger up this last name, John Sotsikos. So he did a really good job of just breaking down since 2016 all the free kicks and the games we'd played and the differentials between them.
I think he looked at the percentages,
right,
and the likelihood of winning or losing, but
and also the league averages and how we determine on the back of that. So look, the way that I look at that, and this is me on a general sense. This is not just me on AFL, but generally, I kind of feel that with numbers, you can kind of draw any conclusion you want to a certain extent. If you're looking to find the numbers to agree with your ideas or your theories, then you'll find a way to make that happen. And what the numbers don't really do for anyone gives no context to is the style of football that the Bulldogs play and had played for that period of time. And I guess what we saw as well is that our guys, sure, some of the umpiring decisions were pretty ordinary, but we can go through them one by one if we need to. But what we're not really talking about is the style of play that they're doing, and that our guys sometimes needed to cheat a little bit. They needed to put that extra, hand over or a bit of a tug or something in order to just get that extra little bit of percentage to try to win that contest that they just weren't winning because we just weren't quite sharp enough, or the Dogs just played that extra bit better. So they just kind of snowballed into them winning the free kick count. And then there's no doubt there's a couple of absolute howlers on the umpiring front. They just added to this frustration, and we all walk away from this thinking that was a really, really bad umpired game. And then we all frustrated and we start blaming umpires. I think we more need to look at the team rather than the umpires, but sure, absolutely, there was some absolute joker of calls there.
When you think about it, mate, it was really the second and the third quarter, and I'm just pulling up my handwritten notes here. The differential the biggest difference was in the second and the third quarter. It was, here it is, 9-1 or 9-2 in the third, and then same in the second, 9-1 or 2. I think there's a bit of retroactive correction there by Champion Data, but the other thing is that we actually had our best quarter in the third. We kicked 4 straight. We're 100% accurate, and that's the quarter that gets us in the game. So my point earlier was I wanted to go through and I wasn't really trying to say one thing or another. I'm just looking at the results from since we played in 2016 and drawing nothing premeditated, but just simple conclusions. And what I think here is that we actually had a chance to win because they were inaccurate. It wasn't really the free kick count that made us win or lose. I mean, sure, it'd be better if we had a bit more of a run through the ground when we didn't get those calls in the second and third quarter, but it wasn't really the thing that stopped us, and I actually went through in the first half of the game and looked at every single free kick and what it was, who it went to, what for, what was the consequence, the immediate consequence. Like, so sometimes it was led to a inside 50 or set shot on goal and then a goal, or other times it was just general play. And, you know, their free kicks didn't always lead to like game winning moments, you know. So, and you actually, lifesaver, I'd done the first half and I was like, this is taking me forever. and you sent me 4 photos of an unbiased Twitter account that had already done it for me. And I was like, this is bloody brilliant.
Yeah, there's a Twitter account called, for everyone at home who just wants to check it out. And it's actually quite good. I back it 100%. It's at @HasUmpStuffUp on Twitter. They basically go through all of the calls, the 50-50 calls that the community basically asked to have a look at. And they pick some of those and they just address it and try to work out whether that's a true call or not. They did a pretty good analysis of the whole thing, and they walked away from it saying, despite a couple of howlers there, and despite the whole community screaming for the umps to be replaced on the spot, they kind of walked away from it thinking, yeah, there was a few bad ones, but they all kind of seemed 50-50 in the end. And on a general sense, it was adjudicated poorly, but fairly, if you catch my drift. So 50-50 in the middle, but it was still a pretty ordinary show by the umpires. So that took away from that. On your point, Noddy, it really comes down to, you know, the call doesn't necessarily make a problem. It's how they carry on after it, right? It's how they progress with the ball after that, what they do with it afterwards. And as you mentioned, the
consistency of adjudication, though, would be nice.
The consistency, it would 100%.
You know, dangerous tackle, right? Warner. I mean, Libba did that twice throughout the game.
Yeah, like
the same action.
There's no doubt in my mind, and I think in the community, that it was a poorly umpired game. But I guess what you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm definitely saying is that wasn't the reason why we lost. It wasn't nice. It wasn't pretty. It made from a very ordinary game of football. But it
gives Swans fan an easy out to so this is why I wanted to do this study again, and that's why we've both gone, okay, there's a couple of types of AFL fans. It's easy to latch onto a clear, like a very big stat difference, especially something as emotionally driven as free kicks when we lose. But last year we lost the free kick count and won by 19, so we weren't really complaining about it then, right? So that's right. Yeah, that's the trend, I think. But I will say thank you for sharing that Twitter account, because it was completely unbiased. Like, I was like, they missed this kick out, the free kick to the Swans, this one. But those guys were good because they did both sides. It was really cool. And I will finish this up here and say, other than the Swans and Western Bulldogs focus, at the end of round 3, Western Bulldogs are sitting first on free kick differential, plus 30, and we're sitting dead last on minus 21. They're averaging 7 free kicks a quarter, and we're getting 4 free kicks a quarter.
That's right. Our game, whatever it is that's going on, I think it was just mostly this game that just drove us into the ground there. But we have hit rock bottom in this. So we need to look at this from a couple of different angles. Like, as you mentioned, you can either look at it from assuming the umpires there's some kind of conspiracy, which I'm not ruling out.
I'm just, especially 2016.
Look, yeah, hey, we can talk about it another time. I would think
they were plus 99 that year, Chriso. They were plus 99 differential.
Yeah, well,
ridiculous.
Okay. We can talk about the conspiracy another time. I'll put my tinfoil hat on and we can go on about it. or we can kind of look at it and go, what is it about our game style and the way that we play is forcing umpires week in, week out, different umpires, to make calls against us. So
it's not just us though. It's Bulldogs against many other teams. So yeah, I think this is more of an AFL question for like when the Bulldogs play. You know, and so, but, you know, the other thing is, you know, it's going to be the same for every other club, like we've realized. You know, sometimes you win the free kick count and you lose. Sometimes you sometimes you lose it and you win. Yeah. You're less likely to complain in the latter. And we're complaining because it's the former this week. And we're emotionally connected to the experience, to the nightmare of 2016 in the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, like it did not help make this game any tastier for us, because not only did we walk away seeing our team play ordinarily, we saw the Bulldogs really beat us in places that we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
All contested possessions, inside 50, all that kind of stuff.
But what we weren't doing But the umpires did not help us. And so we walk away from this feeling absolutely deflated. And so we just assume that the whole world is coming down to get us. And the truth of it is, I think that we have some young players that just absolutely showed it. We had some old players that looked a bit shell-shocked and a bit drained.
Yeah.
Maybe a few many tequilas after Buddy's big one. Maybe a few too many head rubs by most of the Swans fans.
They've all got mild concussion. Mate,
mild concussion.
I put it to you now, though. If we had snatched that game and with the free kick count as lopsided as it was and some of those key stats around stoppages and contest, we'd be laughing. We'd be like, we didn't deserve it. I feel bad for the Bulldogs. That's what we'd be saying, I reckon. But
yeah, and the Bulldogs did the best that they possibly could. They couldn't have done more to try to give us that game.
Yeah, I know.
Genuinely could not have. But hey, thanks Bulldogs, I guess, for trying really hard to give us a crack at it. We didn't take it, and a couple of umpiring calls at the wrong times just didn't work our way. And also, we gave away a couple of free kicks in the wrong time, in the wrong moments, aka weeks, when we started putting some momentum, and it just didn't give us a chance to actually finish it off. So, hey. I think what we really need to do and what we are all about here, and the two of us and the Bevy crew generally, so we're all about kind of learning from the experience. What did we see? How do we take emotion out of it and actually see how to apply the team and what happened with the game and actually what we can take away from it? And I personally think that we've got a couple of changes to make in the team, but nothing too drastic. And what it basically shows me is that we've got a couple of things that we need to fix. And one of those things that we probably need to fix, and we'll go through it maybe a little bit, would be coming out of our defensive half. Coming out of the deep defense at the game was pretty ordinary. We did not move the ball fast. The Dogs locked up every opportunity we had. We could not get a run in. We couldn't get someone scooting past and try to get some extra mileage. Blakey had a good game, but he kind of seemed like he was playing it more in front of the ball than behind it, like he might do some other times. In the Blakey position as well, he did have a good game, and we've determined, no spoiler, we've determined he was probably the better player on the day. But his his impact into those inside 50s, he had a real game inside 50s, but his real impact is for us to get it around the centres, then to have that run on, to swing it through and then get it real deep into our 50. The 50s were quite shallow. If they were 50s, Buddy was tagged by 2-3 different people.
Which is not uncommon. We see that a lot. I think it was the ground ball gets then. They were killing us there as well. Yeah,
exactly. We were probably too tall in that aspect, which is another point we can kind of talk about. So there was a lot of things that I weren't happy about coming out of defensive line. That although we stopped the ball really well, we're doing a really good job of stopping the ball in our side. But then thereafter, the first 3 weeks, I've been talking about it for the first 2 weeks, and this week again, just seemed really disorganized jumping out of it.
Yeah, it's the intercept game is good. The rebound game is a bit dicey at the moment.
A little bit dicey. Yeah, we're missing a McInerney, missing a couple of other pieces there. Yeah,
definitely. Let's crack on to favourite moments, mate, or missed chances, because you often do miss chances when you have a loss. But what were your favourite moments, or a few things that happened in the game, individually and as a team?
Yeah, look, it was a bit tough. It's a bit tough on a big loss like this one. So to come away with a lot of things that went great.
It was easier last week, wasn't it?
Much easier last week. I mean, there was a pretty obvious thing. But Paddy's effort around the ground was quite good. Yeah. I think the stats on AFL.com are telling us that he's done 22 Ks at the game.
Steve-O is just not having it, is he?
Steve-O, the Finnish Viking, has shut that down entirely. He's suggesting that if that was the truth, then Paddy McCartan was online to run a world
full marathon. Yeah,
marathon. So he's just like, that doesn't make any sense. So, but nonetheless, it seemed like he was getting around the ground really well. He's in the right positions. Stopped a couple in the square. In the box, and took a great couple of marks, double teaming a couple of people that seemed more dangerous than his opponent. Generally I liked the way that Paddy played just across the entire game, quite consistent. Had a couple of calls against him that were a bit dodged that I wasn't particularly happy about, so I hope he can shake them off. So the other one was Heaney's mark. I think it was Franklin that kicked it out into the pocket, a bit deep. Franklin, they could have done it a little bit shallower. Heaney ran into the wall at that point, but that was lovely. Heaney was busting gut to get to that ball, made an incredible mark, and then finished it off. So that was really nice to see. On a general team effort, team moment, I guess, would be just the way we did bounce back. We did look shell-shocked in that first half. Second half, I felt that we really started pulling it together. And the players that needed to quite started doing, I think Lloyd started playing a bit better, Warner. So we'll talk about them. But on a general sense, I kind of was happy the way we reacted. Like I said, the Bulldogs did a really, really, really good chance of trying to give us the game. And for the most part, the team did try to take it. So, that's the one thing I take away from this is quite a mature effort towards the end there. What about yourself?
Hey, mate, for me, I just loved Ben Ronk's goal. It came at a really pivotal time. So he was the medical sub. He came on for Hickey, and we'll talk about Hickey later on. But I just thought, he's been on the fringes for a while now. We all know that what he can do. I wonder if he's just been out with injuries since he pretty much kicked those 7 goals. That was his debut, or debut at the MCG. But look, he's one of these players that we've been wondering. He's basically been kept out of the team because of you'd say Wicks and some of these upcoming mids that take that mid forward role. But his goal from the probably wasn't quite 50, but maybe it was. It was right on the boundary, and he bent it round, and it was our second last goal of the game. Before Gouldens marched 50 from Macrae. But yeah, I just thought that was a brilliant goal. Something that like you see Isaac Heaney do 3 or 4 times a game. But well done to Ronk, and I hope he can crack on. In terms of the team, I'm with you, mate. I just thought we just did really well in the second half to get us back within a chance. Obviously, it would have been awesome to have pinched it, and I think Horse said that in the conference afterwards, but yeah, like we did some things right in the second half, so it's not all doom and gloom. But yeah, that was it for me. So I can't really pinpoint one moment of team play. I just thought our general effort in the second half was better, and it was disappointing to go down like we did in the end. But for all the reasons we've already spoken about, we can probably say, yeah, it was a fair result in the end, all things considered. All right, mate, up next, we're going to do the ABOB medal, which is our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal. So this week, the Bevies' best 3 were Blakey, Lloyd, and Warner. So do you want to kick us off with Blakey, mate?
Yeah, Blakey was a shining light throughout the game. Look, he really wasn't able to get going in some spots there. They had, I wouldn't say tagged, but they knew his game, and they were shutting him down a bit, putting a bit of pressure on him, not letting him get a run on. He seemed to shake it a little bit and get going. Look, I think as the competition learns more about him, they're going to try to do more. They're going to try to reduce his impact. But look, 616 meters gained. You'll go through a couple of the other stats, but I think he did a pretty good job there.
25 disposals, 8 rebound 50s, 5 inside 50s. That's pretty good for a centre half back or a backline winger effectively, just with the running he does. But I think you're right. Like, this is round 3. He's a high draft pick, came in as a forward, trialled him in the middle wing. It's clear that he's found his spot, his feet in that backline, dashing off our defensive 50. And so I think your comment that teams are going to be doing work on him now is really well founded, and it's clear, like, with the amount of pressure they were putting on him as well, like that, Tim English, that bump. We'll touch on that later on, but I think that teams are going to be doing that a lot more often, because he's actually quite pivotal for us, because it's not just his dash, it's the kicking efficiency. His kicking style is just beautiful, really. But anyway, all right, let's go on to Lloydie, because he's been quiet the first couple of weeks, but how'd you see his game, mate?
Yeah, look, it's a tough one for this one, because Lloydie did look good. He got high touches. He's always around. It seemed that he made a couple of really clever kicks to try to go inside towards the center when we did get a bit of a rebound going, and the fellas in the centers just couldn't finish it off, or had the pressure on them, or we buggered it up with a bad kick or a bad hand pass straight thereafter. But he did a pretty good job of kind of settling down the game, or at least trying to propel the game forward throughout the entire game, which is kind of tidy.
Yeah, I agree. Like, especially in the second half, I think 29 disposals, 10 rebounds, which is most in the game. Just the one tackle. I think he's one of the guys that would probably fit into that category of senior players that had a few clangers, and that's not just been this week, but he's started the year slow. I think he was out with Warner health and safety protocol, so he's only played 2 games this year. So I think he's warming up. We all know that he's a collector and a bit of a distributor. But, we want him to be, or not just him, we want the back 6 or 7 to be a bit crisper, as you've correctly pointed out. It's one thing to force the turnover, but it's another thing to use it well. And look, I think in the second half he was one of the reasons that we were able to get back into a position to pinch it. I think he can play a lot better than he did, but he was best and fairest last year. He's a very reliable player. Perhaps he could increase his defensive effort, but maybe he's not there purely for that. Everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. So look, I think he deserves to be there because he did stand up when it was needed. Third, now it could have gone. It's always harder to find the top 3 in a loss, and when you have a win like we did last week, we want to talk about everyone. But I think we both agree that Chad Warner did very well, especially in the second half. But how'd you see his game, mate?
Yeah, look, he seemed the least rattled from most. He was definitely getting on with the ball. He did a few really nice things, put some good pressure down, some nice tackling. He just seemed like he looked really, really smart inside there, where a couple of the other players weren't quite as crisp as normal. The effort was absolutely there with him. So I think this is probably the third week we've mentioned him in the top 5 at least, or mentioned him in the top players of the game. And so him coming up third in a game that we lost and a game that was a little bit disappointing from a few different aspects is maybe telling of where he sits right now, but it's also insanely telling that he is so close to really being that breakout player where we talk about every single week, which we effectively are. So yeah, look, really excited. I love the guy. He does go about it quite well. Just got to keep up what he's doing.
Yeah, I love his hunger, right? Like, 20 disposals, 7 tackles, most as a Swan. He wasn't putting up with any crap, right? So there was a little bit of niggle throughout. Like, it was between him and Waitman, him and Dunkley. I think he had a crack at Tom English at one point. So clearly he's got no fear. But I'm with you, mate. I think that even the 2 games that he's played this year, noting that he had that first one out with Lloydie, I think he's warming up, and it's looking like he's picking up where he left off last year, and that's a good thing. I personally think that him, Mills, and Joey might be the combination to see us through at least until the bye, especially if we come up with it against a team that plays us like the Bulldogs this game, where they just crank it in the stoppages and the clearances. But we can talk about that later on. Honourable mentions, mate. Who else do you think played worthy of a mention?
Yeah, look, before I touch on those and before we touch on the next couple of players, I do want to say that Blakey Lloyd has been given 1 and 2 this week, did have a few clangers. And I think that's a description of the entire team for the week. Would you be fair in saying that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is that across the board, from top down, we were just a bit flat, weren't quite as sharp as we should be. We only needed to turn it on that extra 5-10%, and then we would have been absolutely blasting them out the park. So a lot of good takeaways from this. Look, honourable mention, I'd probably say the McCartan brothers. I love the way they were going about it. They did really well. Like I said, I think they stopped a lot of good possession in really dangerous places. Obviously, they let in a couple, but for the most part, I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, look, I'll just add to that. Like, Tommy had a few clangers in that first quarter, but really bounced back in second, third, fourth, and was really like they work so well together, don't they? Really, like, so if Tommy's holding the key forward, then Paddy will leave his, peel off, and then come in and intercept, and vice versa. They're still working it out. As we said, it's kind of like it's an experienced back 6 and 7, but they're still trying to find their feet and gel. But yeah, the McCartan brothers, it's fantastic, isn't it? Anyone else, mate?
Probably say Heaney was okay. He did a couple of really great, skillful things, but I'd even go so far as to say that he kind of seemed the most shell-shocked. But look, he continued to do good things. He was busting around pretty hard. He was really going at the ball as hard as he could, putting some good tackles on people, getting physical, trying to do something to lift the team. I think that was apparent. It wasn't the most sharpest game by him, but he definitely was doing his thing. And I think the consistency with Heaney is really good week in, week out.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that was probably missing from his game this year, this round, was the multiple goals, right? So I think he only kicked one, right?
I think only the one, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he certainly didn't kick 5. So I think that's the thing. We judge him pretty harshly when he doesn't kick a bag as a mid forward. But he's still doing some pretty good things out there. For me, mate, I think Goulden, he wasn't as prominent, and no one was really, as we played in the first and second round. But he was still doing some very smart things, active around the ground. I actually think him and Franklin were, in the third quarter especially, and probably more so Franklin, I even think maybe Buddy played better against the Bulldogs than he did in his 1,000 game, even though he kicked 4 and, it was an amazing night. But I just think his general field play, like he was working so hard, like he would often be in the back pocket trying to make things go, because he's got that beautiful field kick. But I think that Goulden and Franklin combine really well to one another. And I think those two guys, did enough and had really good effort. Definitely worthy of a mention at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. I mentioned the Chad and Heaney last week of always kind of seemingly looking for each other in a way. Like they always... Their style of game or the timings, they just seem to see where each other are. It feels like the Goulden Franklin combo is also a bit of a thing. I've got no stats to back it up with, just the iPub test, but it feels that way. And I think that's pretty exciting for such a young player to have such a good gel with the modern great is great. What is he, 19? Come on.
Yeah, is unreal. All right, mate. Next section is hot topics. So we're going to just have a bit of a general chat about everything, how we pulled up after the match, any MRO, what changes will we make, what happened in the VFL. So I'll kick us off with Hickey's medial. So that was confirmed as a 6-week injury. And the club, sorry,
No, I was just freaking out.
I know. It's a big loss. It's a big loss considering the clearance effort that, he's really been one of our most solid midfielders for, a year and 3 rounds now. So minus the PCL when he was out for a couple of weeks. They're saying that it probably isn't going to be like that, and it's definitely going to be an extended period. So, silver lining is that Petey Boy Laddams comes in now and makes his debut for the Swans. That's already been confirmed. Yeah. He had a pretty good game against, the Suns in the VFL. He had 24 hitouts, 17 disposals, 4 tackles and a goal after an interrupted preseason. So, look, I think this is it's obviously fortuitous. It's a lucky break for him. But it's he's one of the reasons we chased him so hard. Hickey has been a revelation, but he does come with some banged up knees, and we're lucky to, especially with Naismith out. And we obviously have we're blessed with ruck forward options, McLean, Amadi, at a pinch. Probably Paddy McCartan could go in there. We've got Sam Reid who can do that. So look, I'm pretty stoked I'm disappointed for Hickey, but I'm really keen to see how Laddams is going to go this week.
Yeah, and as we spoke about last week, didn't we? We said, how do we get Laddams in? Like, what kind of place is he going to take? And we suggested maybe a Logan. He comes in for that. It turns out Logan Lee gets out, and Amadi is the first option.
Yeah.
But now that Laddams getting the opportunity, I think we're all kind of excited to see what he can do. And I don't want to put too much pressure on him. I'm not expecting him to turn into a Hickey overnight. But I don't think there's much of a question about how much talent that he has for a young player. So I want him to get out there, put on a good game, be solid, do the right things, and just try to keep the spot for the next week, and just keep doing what he needs to do to make it happen.
I'm keen to see his tank. I want to see if he can really get around the ground.
That's interesting, because I was actually going to say the Amadi's tank wasn't entirely there, and I don't know whether that's to do with his groin and he couldn't quite get the work in, but that seemed to definitely be something that was lacking.
First week back, it is tough. And he did, I think Amadi, he's that kind of player that would, like any player really, after an interrupted preseason as well, you probably need a couple of weeks to get back into it. But Juzzy McInerney is sounding like he's fit. But so long as there's no further setbacks this week. But Tommy Papley is still a week away. So, Laddam's in for Hickey. If Juzzy is a lock to come back in, then who's on the who makes way? I
think Stevens jumps out. A couple of weeks there that wasn't he's done his thing. He had a couple of good weeks actually. Last game wasn't great by many of them. But I think that's just the position that makes a bit of sense, I think.
I mean, Ronk came in as a medical sub, so he might be the first one out. Do you sit Wicks down to say, listen, mate, we really didn't need that, that last 50 metre, but it wasn't really his fault. He was already committed to the air, and bloody Keith played for it. I mean, on that Wicks, you told us earlier, he's getting 2,000 for striking, 2,000 early plea, low impact, high contact. I thought that was a bit dramatic, but I don't know, maybe, I know a lot of Swans fans, there's this whole school of thought out there that Wicks shouldn't be in the team, but I disagree with that. I think he's a genuine role player, and I think he does his job well, but maybe he's one of the guys. If Logan comes back in, because he kicked 4 goals, took 8 marks and 17 disposals, and a pretty obvious sort of statement saying, put me back up in the seniors, does the party come back out? Does McLean have a rest? What's the balance you go with there?
Look, touching on the Wicks bit, I've not necessarily subscribed to the fact that he needs to jump out just because he's not kicking goals every week. But this week in particular, I mean, they all played ordinarily, but this week was 3 frees against, 4 clangers, 4 touches. How many tackles did he have? 4 tackles. So, typically okay with the tackles as he normally is. He's kind of trying to get the pressure on. That's his position. Yeah. But yeah, maybe he does need to sit that week off to just cool him down a bit and just go, look, you kind of seem hot-headed. Get down there, do your craft and come back up again. I think he's a player that we do see in the game for a little while for us.
So do you reckon Ronk holds, or do we bring in someone like Gussie Sheldrick or Matty Roberts get his debut? Because they both had fairly good games against the Suns. Matty Roberts had 31 disposals, 5 clearances. Gussie had 23 disposals, 7 tackles and a goal.
Look, the whole controversy with Wicks, you can multiply by 10, and that's Ronk controversy with the Swans fans. Like, I think there's a lot of Swans fans that do expect Ronk to be kicking the 7 like he did against the Hawks every single week, and that's what he's meant to be doing. And even him to kick 1 a game is decent considering what we need. It's the style of play, it's the pressure on the ball is what we need. Sheldrick was doing that really well week 1. I think personally that Ronk is a very good player. He's got speed, he's got good tackle, good football brain, he can kick a goal. So maybe he just needs more time in. If it's between those two, Ronk and Sheldrick, I struggle so hard to consider who I would bring in. I wouldn't even know. I'd have to flip a coin. One is a player that I think is going to have a long, long career in the AFL, but that's also, we know he's going to have a long, long career in the AFL. And so I don't necessarily think speeding him through the process is necessarily the way to go. Whereas I would like to see Ronk have another opportunity for him to hold the position. I look at those small forward positions similar to the problem that we'd had with the backs for a little while there. There was a couple of years ago, we had Amati, had, oh my God, what's his name? Melican, thank you. Had a Leah, and I kind of felt like they were all kind of keeping themselves out of the game. Whoever was playing the best kind of kept that position. That's the way I see that extra small forward role this year in Sheldrick, Ronk, Wicks.
Probably Sheether as well. You could throw in there.
Probably Sheether will have a crack at it at some point. Yeah, so there's a lot of competition there in the small forwards as well as the talls. So, and I think from what I saw this week, I would like to see more smalls out there. So, hey, maybe there's 2 of them. We're definitely missing a Papley. We're missing a Papley like no one's business.
Yeah, we need to make sure we get more goals really than 9. But
more opportunities at goal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is it time to put Joey back in the middle? I mean, look, I personally probably would have thrown. Like, I know that he did run through there. I can't remember if it was second or third quarter, but I just kind of get the feeling like I think we all agree that he plays better on the wing than at back. But he plays amazingly in the middle as well. Like, I think we're making room for these up and coming mids, right? We've been saying that for the past couple of weeks, but Ollie had a quiet game, Rowie had a fairly quiet game, the Chad was good, so like, I'm not saying drop these guys, definitely not, because they, we all I think that everyone had a bit of an off night, but like, I just think when push comes to shove and we're getting beaten off the ball, put Joey back on the ball. What do you think about that?
I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think that's kind of what Horse would be thinking as well. Maybe this week was one of those weeks was like, look, it kind of seems too far beyond us, so let's just keep to our style. I don't think Horse is the kind of guy who wouldn't play to win.
Definitely not.
At any moment, he would do absolutely everything we can to win all the way through the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. One part of me thinks, yeah, look, we get Joey back in there. He definitely has the goods, but maybe the structure of the game of what we want doesn't include him necessarily full time in there. Maybe it's just, and maybe that's what you're suggesting, that we pop him in for 2 quarters at a time, just when we kind of need that kind of extra impact.
It's really about that. So the other thing that Swans fans, or I think most AFL fans will, have gripes about, especially when you lose, is not having a plan B when you're getting beaten so badly as we did in the first half against the Bulldogs. Even though if we'd kicked at slightly more efficiency, it would have been a different story. But I think Horse has been criticised over the journey for not having a better plan B, and last year seemed to be the first time in a very long time that we was, I think Swans fans were like, oh wow, we've got a plan B, we're doing short kicks, we're working the corridor, we're getting inside 50s, we're really efficient. And I think a lot of that was Don Pike's presence and his game style, and Don Pike's still there. And we're a second year in, and we're honing that. But I think this was one of those games where some Swans fans were starting to criticise that we didn't have a plan B, and I personally probably would have thrown Joey in there a bit earlier to try and nullify some of that heat from the Dogs. But look, using this week as the example, if we're going to use that specifically and talk about it, I would say that it didn't necessarily matter that impact. When we were getting hands to the ball, we were just misusing it, and that was everyone. So I don't necessarily think that Joey being in the centres would have done a whole lot for us. I think, but Joey being in the centres for the right matchup with them hard contested ball. Let's look at like a Blues, the way that they're playing at the moment. I think that would make sense. Put your best in there and your biggest, strongest people on those guys, because we lost some contested possessions, mate, by 24. Like that's his game, contested possessions.
But so it's also all the other players' game. Like that's what the Swans. That's what those mids in the first 2 games are good at. So I don't
giving them an opportunity to do that. Yeah, but I think I just think it's a talking point. I know that some Swans fans, it's from the beginning of the year, seeing Joey in a position anything other than midfield. You and I have been talking about it for the past 2 weeks. So it's worthwhile having a look at that. Millsy had a good game, but he probably wasn't as prevalent as he had been in rounds 1 and 2. So if Millsy's not, taking that heat as the key midfielder that can either run with or break clear, and Chad, he's still young and developing really, and Parker, we need to kind of run forward and actually kick goals for us, but was somewhere awkwardly between the mids and the forwards. But like Heaney probably didn't have too much of an influence in this game. Then especially with Juzzy, if Juzzy comes back in, you prefer Juzzy as a on the halfback, don't you, rather than the wing?
No, I actually prefer him on the wing. Yeah, I like his swing on. I like the way that he goes on the wing. I think he seems to know where the ball's going, so he gets himself there first. He's one of the hardest runners in the team. I like him on the wing. Yeah.
Fair call. So, all right, Wicks, we mentioned earlier, $2,000 fine for striking Keith. Tim English, on the other hand, got off scot-free for that Blakey knock. So, there's that. I think you've got a couple of other things to mention here, mate.
Yeah. We've got a couple of look. We've got some good news in the Swans community. We've had Swans super fans, Imogen and Soslin Jep, Joe the wife guy now. They're both prevalent on Twitter. They got married, I think, today. And Swans HQ had been fantastic enough to send them a signed Buddy boot as a wedding gift, which
Awesome.
is just great. And that's on Twitter if you go looking for it. And so congratulations to them. It's a big day, and I hope they have a fantastic one.
Buddy, beautiful, mate.
Buddy boot.
Congratulations to those guys.
Yeah. Look, a couple other cool things that we definitely have to talk about in Swans community news would be Kenny is good and well, celebrating his 93rd birthday yesterday. He got up, got around some of his merchandise behind red and white, and he gave us all a message. So he seems to be good. So good to see him getting out there. Hopefully he can come out to a game at some point, give the boys a bit of riling up. But yeah, happy birthday, Kenny.
Awesome.
And look, while I was at the game on Thursday, I actually messaged the Marty party and caught up with them, and I had a quick interview with them, some of those boys. So shout out to the Amati party, good fellas. They were having a good time. The prediction at halftime by one of the boys was that the Swans would win by 60, and Amati would kick the winning goal somehow. I don't know how the maths pulls together, but they're good characters, really, really nice, and seemed to be in good spirit. And we're trying to find any opportunity to get a cheer out. So that was good.
Awesome, mate. All right, well, we're up to the end now, so we're going to go into one last thing. Obviously, we've got the Roos next week, and we'll release the preview during the week when we have teams announced. But I don't think it'll be easy. Have you got any early thoughts, mate?
I've got concerns because, as an example, just so everyone has a bit of context, Noddy and I sit in the O'Reilly stand with what we've deemed the O'Reilly rabble. What Noddy is the O'Reilly rabble, a bunch of us that all sit together and have a good time. We're all mates. Most are dads at this point, and they're all bringing their kids this week because it's a day game, and also it's against North, and so they're not expecting much of competition. Now that's got me concerned because we don't play great against the bad teams. And I really hope that Horse and the coaching staff rile up this team to let them know that this is a game where we need to answer. We need to bounce back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, same, mate. Like the Roos got trounced against the Lions, and as you said, they beat West Coast in round 2, and that was the Waffle All-Star team. And then they got beaten by Hawks, who I thought were on a similar level, but the Hawks have then since played some pretty good footy against some other opponents. So, look, they've got a lot to make up for like a 100-point loss last week, and we had a bit of a reality check, I think, against the Bulldogs after the emotional high after Buddy's 1,000. So both teams got plenty to play for. Look, I just think that it won't be easy, especially, really keen to see how Laddams goes. Obviously, Goldie's in there. Sherry is an up-and-coming ruck as well, so it's going to be a really hard battle in the middle. I think, they've got a lot of high draft picks. They've just, they're bringing it together under Noble. So, I'm nervous about this one, but it should hopefully be a pretty good day. How about Harps in the chat, the Savo mate? He's like, we're still getting it on it, aren't we, boys? Like, it's because everyone's teeing up, bringing their kid and everything. So.
That's obviously a G up because the kids are like 2, 4.
Little Pluggers or little Buddy's 9 months. So he's
right.
he's going to be having a couple of.
I don't see any of these guys getting beers after the game because I don't see them finishing off the game with a toddler in hand. So I think maybe the biggest battle that's going to happen would be between the toddlers being hungry and need to go to the bathroom in the O'Reilly stand. I think that's where the main battle might be happening.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just finish off with my a little bit of a section, best worst memory against the Roos. So I'm going to focus on the worst, and that was losing the 1996 grand final against North Melbourne. We went down there together as a family, we're down there for a couple of days. There was all that fanfare, that build up, it obviously had been, a couple of, I think it was 6 decades by then, that the Swans or South hadn't won a flag. Obviously the drought break came later in 2005. But look, that was amazing, but I'll never forget the young North fan whose face was painted Harlequin with one of those court jester blue and white hats, just flipping me several birds on the way out, saying, piss off back to New South Wales. But so that's my worst memory of against the Roos. So hopefully it can be a little better than that. And we come out and we give them hell. But fingers crossed.
The Bloods of Old actually on Twitter posted something. It was 20 years ago. After the bell, they North copped a free kick, and Darren Crosswell kicked the winner after the bell. We were 3 behind to finish it off. That was pretty tidy. So that probably goes down as one of the better moments against North. So hey, hopefully we get through this one without too much of a problem.
Definitely, mate. Nice one. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. So on behalf of the Bevy, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone for listening in. Tune in again on Thursday night for our team's announcement video and preview post. Otherwise, make sure to keep following us on Instagram and Facebook at A Bevy of Bloods for updates and announcements. Until then, up the Bloods and can you Swannies. You.